You're the boss. That's the biggest lesson I learned is like, you're the boss. People will have strong opinions or weak opinions or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're the boss. You make the decisions, you own it. And also like, don't focus too much on the consequences of things because the consequences of things are the precursor to the next thing. So like, okay, this didn't happen how you wanted it to, fine, but it's still how it happened. So what's next?
That was this week's guest, Ashley Wen. Ashley is a 25-year-old based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We worked together at an education nonprofit back in 2021 and both left that same year. Ashley went on to start her own company, Radical, a fashion tech startup that makes custom fit bras using a custom 3D scanning technology. On this week's episode, Ashley and I discuss that the path through entrepreneurship isn't always straight, and she gives advice to her college self, which ultimately sparked the idea for Radical. Ashley's message is powerful, and I hope that it resonates with anyone who needs it. I'm Kyle Cusimore, and this is I Don't Know About You.
Hi, Ashley. Welcome to I Don't Know About You. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
Let's jump in with, I'd love to hear just a little bit about you, like just in general, like who is Ashley? I want to talk a little bit about Radical, your company, and would love to just kind of, give the audience some background.
Yeah, I'm Ashley. I've always been all about community, and that led me down a very startup-y career in edtech. So I got my first job while I was actually before I started university at UC Berkeley, and that led me down social impact startups, and which led me to edtech, and then realized love working with communities, and then worked in edtech in a lot of different roles. And eventually, what that led me to was going back in person after COVID, realizing that all I was thinking about was that my bra didn't fit me. I couldn't focus on the work that I actually wanted to do, which was edtech and education. And that really irked me. And so it irked me so badly that I ended up starting my own company, raising money for it, patenting novel technology that allows us to make custom bras for basically anyone at a much more affordable price.
I'm sure everyone got this from just your bio, but Ashley's like super impressive. We actually worked together during her edtech era. And yeah, just like, thank you again for like coming on and just like sharing some wisdom with everyone.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Of course. Yes, you shared just a little bit about Radical, and I want to like look back just a little bit, like whether it's like to early career, college, right before Radical. I always ask every guest, what advice would you give to your younger self? And we'll kind of like frame a lot of the interview like through that, but what era would you like to provide advice to? And then also like, what advice would you give yourself?
So I should also provide some context in Radical. The big reason why my bra not fitting me was bothering me so much is that I dealt with a pretty bad eating disorder for a long time, manifested in a lot of different ways. And I choose not to speak about it now because it can be triggering. But I would tell myself at the height of my eating disorder, which for me, I think the worst time was my sophomore year of college. And I would just say like, hey, like you are beautiful. And I think it's a really, it kind of feels like a little cheesy to say, but also like she didn't know that. And she spent a lot of time questioning herself and letting the opinions of others influence her, whether for good or for bad, but she just didn't have conviction in herself. So I just wanted her to know that she's beautiful and that I love her now. And I wish she was kinder to herself then.
100%. And I think that's just like so important for people to remember, like, especially in that era of our lives. Like, I feel like everyone goes through something to that effect of just like self-image or self-doubt or like whatever it is. And I think just like remembering to just be kind to yourself and love yourself, like, is like super important. And I really appreciate the advice. Let's jump into just like a little bit more about Radical. I'd love to just like give the audience like a little bit more context on like what the story has been like up to this point. Like maybe we could also just start with like, the year was 2021 and Ashley and I worked at a unnamed education company together for a short period of time. And then the next time that we really like truly caught up, you were like thinking about Radical and you shared just a little bit of that, but like, maybe like, let's start there. Like what made that moment like the right moment for you to like actually start Radical? And then what did the story look like?
First, I want to say that's never truly the right time. It's just the time that you decide to start. So I'll say that. And there have been times when I've looked back and thought that was a little bit early for you to jump. But you know, it's part of the journey, and it's part of just deciding to make a move and do it. But what I talked about a little bit before, and what I'll share a little bit more about now is, I was, starting to lead a team, doing more things in person, coming back after COVID and putting on real clothes for the first time, and really becoming aware of just how badly this undergarment fit me. And all I was thinking about was like, wow, have I just been like putting up with wearing a real bra that feels horrible my whole life? And I hadn't really owned a bra before as well. And it's kind of just like, guess this is something that I have to put on every day. And what really angered me was just thinking like, there are so many ways that women are not treated the way that they should be treated. And there's so many ways that women's needs are, not taken care of. And we can't even get underwear. Like we can't even get the very, very basic first thing that you put on right. And so how are we going to ask for like anything else on top of that? How can we move towards equity when we can't even get underwear? Like that was the feeling. And so, yeah, I mean, that was where the passion came from. And then what stemmed from that was I actually started to talk about my eating disorder for the first time with other people. And I had never done that before.
How did it feel? Like I don't want to like get into it right now just because you mentioned it, let's keep that a little bit separate, but like actively sharing it and like making that choice to share that with people. Like, how did that actually feel?
It was the first time I shared, I remember I couldn't make eye contact with the person I was talking to. And it's because it was just like this shame that had built up for so long. And I don't think I was even really like aware of how much shame I had built for myself. And even as I'm saying it now, like I built for myself, but it was just something that loomed over me for so long. And so I think it was heavy. And I also want to say that talking about it for the first time, I didn't really know the right way to, and it kind of came out as like a stream of consciousness. As I've gotten to talk about it more, I've kind of culled down the paragraph of things that I share, and just like there's a lot of power in just saying like I had an eating disorder, like period, full stop. Yeah, it was scary. It was definitely scary talking about it for the first time, and it was also a mix of like eye-opening and just deeply frustrating that other people could relate to me and could just clearly empathize with a lot of the things that I was going through that I had felt so ashamed of and so small because of. It made me really sad to know that other people were experiencing that same thing.
Yeah, most definitely. Getting back into just like the story with Radical and stuff, like I remember like some of our early conversations around like when you started Radical, and like this is going to sound silly because I'm not like a founder, like I haven't gone throughout this, but like, I feel like I can kind of picture like what starting like a SaaS business would look like. But like with Radical, obviously it's way different because there's like custom hardware, there's manufacturing, like you have a physical product that like is custom, which like is like what's obviously really unique about it, but also probably what was like really challenging. But how did you even think about like getting started with something like this?
Yeah, so I had an unfair advantage. Actually, was surrounded my whole life by the aligners industry, so like teeth aligners. Actually, my dad was the original CTO of Invisalign, and I didn't know that fact until I actually had to get braces, and he was
Wait,
like,
really?
yeah, he never told me about it. And so I would see these aligners around our house. I was like, yeah, I know what an aligner is. But I had no idea what my dad did for a living. And I think that was an intentional choice on his part. But what it did do was it oriented me towards like a very specific way of thinking, which was the exact inspiration behind Radical in the first place. It was like, what if we could take the technology of like custom fitting someone for something, as Invisalign does, and then creating something custom for them. So what Invisalign does is it's a 3D scan, you have a custom design that's made, and then custom fabrication. What if you could do that for bras? And so started to think that piece through, talked with a lot of different engineers who had worked on similar products, whether it be like shoes or teeth aligners or, just other industries that had similar thinking. And that was where the technology for Radical stemmed from.
Interesting. I had no idea that that was like, because I think that we had talked about like how your dad was involved with Invisalign, but I like it's also just so obvious now, like, duh. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So he had worked on Invisalign again, like, it was something that we were always surrounded by. Like, I don't think any other kid could say, maybe. I think this is a very unique experience to find like aligners on paper towels just like throughout your house with like different testing. Like that was my, like I had so many teeth models around me all the time. So I knew about the technology and like, in pieces, but he largely, like, I did not know that was Invisalign. I didn't know what that was. So
For sure.
yeah, it definitely made me feel like I was definitely raised to be a lot more creative and ask a lot of what if questions. And that was sort of my relationship with my dad is very much like that. Like we go on a lot of walks, ask each other different questions, explore different ways of thinking. And I think COVID allowed us to take like a lot of walks together, and that's radical. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be a conversation you'd have with your dad, but I was like, hey, like, I think this is a good application of the same technology or similar technology.
Super cool. Like, was he like a supporter of this idea like from day one?
Yeah, definitely. I think he was like, this is totally doable. Like, I could totally see this being like how this could get done. But also, there were a lot of people who had done similar work at other companies or tried it in a different application and were very much like, look, we tried this for years. It failed. Best of luck. We think it's a great idea, but best of luck. And so, yeah, he was definitely very supportive and very excited about it. But there were other people who were very honest, like, I don't know if what you're trying to do is in fact doable. And that kind of lit a fire under my ass of like, now I really want to do this.
Yeah, like prove them all wrong and like, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I will say, like, they were very happy when our technology ended up working. And like I shared samples with a couple of them and they were, very supportive. So it wasn't like a revenge or anything like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
But like I was like, oh, this is exciting. Like this is a frontier that people have tried and like haven't been able to figure out. I wonder if we took like a different approach or, tried something new, what would happen?
For sure. Getting back into like process wise stuff, like when you were starting it, like I know that there's like some custom hardware, there's obviously like an app. Maybe like explain just like all the different pieces like to everyone.
Yeah. So what it is maybe I'll walk you through the journey of
Yeah.
Radical Bra. So what we initially developed is a 3D scanning app. So you would stand in front of your phone with your current bra on. And what it does is it essentially creates like this 3D model of your body. So it's kind of like a virtual mannequin. And then from that, we custom designed the garment. So it's along two parameters. One of them is the fit. So it has to fit, like, let's say, like your measurements. And the second piece is support. So your boobs have weight and they need to be supported. And so what are the actual support factor? Like, what does that look like in the design? And then from that design, what we do is we custom mold the bra itself. So we custom mold the front piece and then we sew on the back pieces and create your bra. And that is custom made to your dimensions or your measurements.
For sure. And you said that you started with like the app side of this, right? Like, or like how did you think about like connecting the two pieces or like what? Yeah, I'm just like still so curious with just like going from like, using your phone as like a scanner and all of that to like actually producing it.
Yeah, we kind of piecemealed it. So developing the app and developing the 3D scanning technology, that was its own project. And then separately developing the technology to actually custom mold bras was another piece. And then actually a third piece of the equation is designing the bra itself. So you have to design a garment that can in fact be custom molded or custom made. So we had to go about and take elements of current bra design principles, like we were checking out books from the library and things like that.
Yeah.
And then figuring out like, okay, how do we make a high quality bra? And then how do we make the machine that makes this high quality bra customizable? And if it sounds confusing, it kind of is. It was a little bit of like an everything all at once kind of
Yeah.
situations.
Thinking back to like some of those early days, what were like the biggest challenges that you and the team experienced at Radical?
Oh gosh, I would say the biggest one was that everything was virtual. So this was like the tail end of COVID, but actually a lot of the bra making expertise is in China. And I myself am Chinese, the daughter of Chinese immigrants. And so my ties to China are very close. And a lot of the initial work we had done to test different elements of the bra, we were all doing in China. So I was starting my workday with them at 5 p.m. every day, which would be their 9 a.m. Like learning to read Chinese, which I'd not done before, and really sharpening my speaking skills and like learning on the side. So learning a whole new language. And then on top of that, we had, I think the best thing about COVID was that we were able to work virtually with way more people beyond who were physically accessible. But that also meant like, okay, how do you coordinate a time between someone from San Francisco and Boston and China, and then like how do
Yeah.
you get everyone on the same timeline? And the answer is like some people have a meeting at 12 a.m. and like just happens
Right.
sometimes. So yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. It's like how do you, when you're at a point where like iteration is just, it's just all about like moving super quickly and trying new things and experimenting and really gelling as a team and taking all of your different talents and putting them towards this common goal. How do you make that team cohesion happen when everyone is so far apart and around the world?
Totally. I remember like, so the agency that I work for, Slam, that I've shared in a previous episode, we actually partnered with Ashley on like one of her very first like websites before like, you know, there were things out there in the world. But like, I remember like hearing like a little bit like during that time on Radical. And then like, I remember there was a giant social launch, like I think a couple months after that. What did like actual momentum feel like? Like, did that feel like the momentum moment? Like, or when do you think you actually started gaining momentum? And like, what did it feel like?
That is an interesting question because I think there's been a lot of different times that we've picked up momentum. So the first time I felt momentum was when we had money in the bank, or actually, I should say when we had the first check in the bank. It's like, wow, something's happening here. Like
Right.
people, like there's money behind people's words and they care about what we're doing. And that was the first wind. And then that's actually a lot of the work that Slam had helped us with, and you know, you were very involved with, was getting like a basic splash page and getting like a really good explanation of what we were working on ready so that investors could get excited. And when people get excited on your behalf, you know, it spurs your own excitement as well. The second piece that you mentioned is that social launch. And we had done a big launch on social media. We had like made a video, went down to LA for that. And that felt just like, it was just electric. Like I think the validation that we received was not necessarily for our product yet because we didn't yet have a product to launch, but from people who could resonate a lot with the why behind, you know, starting Radical. I think even just knowing that we were creating a space where other people could feel heard and feel seen through my own story and through what we were creating, and this like joy in bras, which I think historically hasn't always been there. I mean, that was just momentous.
And you can like feel that in like the videos on social, like whether it's you or the other people in the room, like you can just tell like as like a viewer that like this is something, you know, and like they're like clearly like really behind like the mission and really passionate about just like everything happening here.
I
It
appreciate
was
that.
just super cool to see, like just as a friend. Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the other things that like you've mentioned just over time was like one of your favorite parts of Radical is doing the bra fittings. Tell me about like what do those look like? Why does that feel special to you? Yeah, just like share a little bit about like the bra fitting process.
I have so much I could share about this, but first I want to shout out to creators, Madison Alexandra and Charlene Lamba. She's French, and so sorry, like I just said her name in a crazy way, but these two creators are both bra fit experts who actually Madison found me on social media through Radical's TikTok, and Charlene I met through a bra fitting seminar run by Kim A. Caldwell, who is just like the bra fit expert. And they really showed me how much joy was in bras and have such a deep passion for making women feel confident in their bodies, and bras being one of the vehicles for that. So that really inspired me, like the joy in their videos, the joy and it translates so much to like the FaceTimes that we've been able to have. I met Charlene in Portugal, and like hung out with her in person because it's so infectious. Like you just have to meet them. But that translated to me running my own bra fitting parties and really taking the elements that I was seeing in their videos and hearing from them and bringing that to more women. So what we do is like, or for these bra fitting, what I'm going to call bra fitting parties, it's basically these different events, let's say like at a yoga studio or as part of a dance class or even at like a workplace gym. What we do is we invite a lot of women to come together and get bra fit, and it almost feels like a wedding dress try on. But what they do is they come in, like they try on different bras. I explain to them like the story behind Radical. I explain to them this like how bra fitting works. I just demystify a lot of the, that black box. And we just have a blast doing it. And my favorite part is that I let girls try on samples of our bras, and oftentimes they like hype each other up, and they're all kind of wearing their own unique size. They look slightly different, of course, they have different bodies, but their bras support them. And they're like looking at each other going like, oh my God, you look amazing. And then the other person's turning to their friend and going, oh my God, you look amazing. It is just like the most joyous experience for people to be validating each other and to really feel comfortable and like confident in their own bodies.
For sure. So like when you like are setting this up, do you bring like just a million bras basically with you?
Yes, I have a big suitcase of about, I want to say now it's like 200 of our samples of just like a lot of different sizes. So they correspond to like slightly different variations of X bra. And what we do is like, I just try to get it as close as possible to what people have or what people want and what people need, in my opinion, as a bra fitter. But also like it allows me to set expectations of like, hey, I'm going to try my very best to get you a bra that you feel comfortable in. But you know what? Right now, it's not going to be the full custom experience because we don't have the funds to produce that bra yet. So
for sure,
if it doesn't fit you, then I also want you to know that that's on us and that's not on you. So it allows us to open up that disclaimer as well in the competitions.
When we think about like, going back to your original thing that you said, as far as like the advice you'd give yourself, like you said, like, I want you to like remember that you're beautiful and that you're loved. How do like those emotions like come up like during these bra fittings? Like, do you see like women like struggle with this like throughout the fittings? Like, and it's also a community aspect. So there's like, if it's at a yoga studio, your like yoga class, like how do like all these things like kind of like meld together like within like a fitting experience?
Yeah. So first thing I'll say is that when I say like things like you're beautiful and I give myself affirmations like these, it's a lot about being patient with yourself. And that's another piece of the bra fitting experience that I have learned, is that sometimes what people need isn't like to be hyped up and to have someone in their face, but to have the space to experience the bra for themselves and to have autonomy in their choices of whether or not they're going to buy something. It's not about making the sale, it's about making people happy. And that's something that I hold very sacred. But what I'll say is like, these communities that we're entering already have just such a strong self-love message that resonates in the classes themselves. As soon as you walk in the room, there's one dance studio that we got to work with called Euphoria. They're based in San Francisco. Just like the second you walk into that room, the front desk are so kind towards you. Everyone in the class knows each other. The lighting is like, it's just like this beautiful aura. And so there's already that energy in the room before we even come in. So we're really there to not to bring anything new, but to just accentuate what you're already experiencing in these studios and these spaces. And so, we're just really lucky to like have always partnered with people who are creating safe spaces for women and for really everyone, and for us to just be able to come in and for them to feel like we align with, their principles.
For sure. And it's like, it feels like from afar again, like everyone that's like supported you, like by doing like a fitting there, like it feels like just such a good alignment. So like,
it is. Yeah. Like we've done like guided journaling session and then followed by fittings, and like we've done self-love letter writing parties, can't even like different dinner parties and game nights and like just different things that when people are already feeling in their element, they're feeling relaxed, they're feeling like they're part of a community and they feel supported. Now let's do this extremely vulnerable thing. Bra fitting is a vulnerable experience, and it's very much more so, I think, about the emotional experience than it is like physically getting to the result. That would be an awesome byproduct, but emotionally, do you feel supported throughout this experience? That's been a huge priority for me and for Radical at large, and it's also a priority of everyone that we've partnered with. Very lucky for that.
Like you mentioned, like it's a vulnerable, like intimate, and just like really personal experience. Like is like how you like really have these like bra fitting parties.
Yeah, it totally is. And actually, it just almost feels like a little bit like of a therapy session. And oftentimes people share a lot about their lives or their struggles and things that they may not have opened up about before. Not even because it's super vulnerable, but because they haven't had the space to, right? Like, sharing about your bra issue or being able to pinpoint it down is a luxury in and of itself. Not everyone can understand, like, the issue is my straps. Like, that's not something that's easily accessible to people. My job is to explain how bras work, explain the science behind them so people can understand, actually, this overwhelming abstract problem I have is it's actually a very tangible thing that we can solve here or we can work towards solving together.
Did you get a sense of like a lot of people do struggle with this, like outside of like obviously you had your own personal like struggles with it, but like was this like a problem that a lot of women have?
Mm-hmm. Yes, a lot of people struggle with the same issues that I was struggling with, and I also saw a lot of similarities between other women. And I think a large part of that was because there aren't the sizes that people need available in the market. And so what I say is, traditionally bra companies have sold what women buy and not necessarily what women need. And I'm not in the position to fault anyone for that. But I think a big part of it is that it costs a lot to manufacture that many sizes of bras. I would know because I spent a lot of money doing it and I developed technology to do that. And so my cost would be less than another company's. And I don't know another company that could afford to do that. So for whatever the reason is, there haven't been the bras that women need in the market. And so when people try on our bras, they're like, wow, this is completely different. Yeah, because you've never seen this size in your life. Like, this size doesn't exist at other stores. It doesn't exist elsewhere. Like, that was the experience for me. And it's the story that my friends like to like poke fun at me for, because I didn't have a bra that fit me before I made my own bra company, because my size doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the US and it barely exists elsewhere. So yeah, it's a joy.
What was a moment that you really felt like Radical was like making an impact, either on like customers or like the space or just like, or even on you?
I would say on customers, I get texts all the time, or I get DMs all the time of women saying, different stories about their Radical bras. Like, I had one woman reach out to me about how she was one of our earlier customers. We didn't have really many samples to give out, and she said, I save my sample for when I have like important meetings because it makes me feel the most confident. Things like that. Just, I've had people cry in the fitting room with me, like liken it to like a cathartic experience. And yeah, I think my favorite thing, and I'll never get tired of this, is watching someone put on a bra and just like seeing them see themselves in the mirror and their expression totally changing. And I'll share one last story. I had the luxury of fitting a family during Thanksgiving, and it was a family of women. The youngest was, I think, like applying to college, and then the oldest in the group was actually their grandma. So it was several generations of women.
Wow.
All of them wore the same style of bra, all of them in a very unique size. And to watch that change each person's experience on that day forward, just like really showed me the magnitude of what Radical is capable of doing. And I felt very proud in that moment.
Like, I just couldn't even imagine a moment like that, like seeing just like, goosebumps.
It was very heartwarming for me. And yeah, just like each person has a very different reaction, a very different relationship with their bodies, and at different stages of your life you have different needs as well. And so we're just the first thing that you put on, and we just want you to know that at the very basic level you're being supported. That's mission. Yeah.
Totally. So you've alluded to this earlier in the episode, but you have since transitioned from working full-time on Radical to now part-time. I'd like to hear just a little bit about like what led to that decision, and like how is your relationship with your company, your baby Radical? Like how has that like changed?
Yeah, letting go is hard. And what happened was, I think, is a struggle that a lot of other founders experience, which is lack of funding. I raised $1 million to start the company, to develop the technology. And I thought that after we developed the technology, we had this, these samples that would be enough impetus to raise a second round. For whatever the reasons were, we couldn't, and we didn't raise a second round. And that is a truth that a lot of other founders will experience as well. So I say that because I just don't want other people to feel alone in that experience. But I kept running the company for another year without a salary. I wasn't making much to begin with, but taking zero and then also giving some of my own money to keep the company alive. I was the only employee left. I gave everyone severance by not taking a salary and giving them my salary. And it just, the sacrifices kept piling up. I was willing to sacrifice, but I was not trying to be a martyr to a cause that would not actually yield any benefit. So I've started to realize that I was just digging myself into the ground, and it wasn't productive. And so I said, okay, like something has to change. I can't have every conversation be like a rant session. And I believe in this. I believe in Radical with my whole heart. But just because you believe in something doesn't mean that you should keep running into the ground. So that was a decision I decided to make. Is it the right one? People might have different opinions, but it was the right one for me. And it's given me space to think about Radical from a different vantage point. When you're not consumed by it, there's just so many more things you can think about. And that's what I've had.
What is like it's not day to day at this point, but like what does it look like these days? How does Radical fit into your life? And like also, how does it feel to like have this different vantage point, as you phrased it?
Yeah. So nowadays, I by day work at an education startup, and I actually also like started to explore other interests of mine. So, like I started taking new classes and just trying out new things that I didn't have time to do because I was working, spending all my time on Radical. And then what that's allowed me to do is re-examine why I was so excited about Radical in the first place. And I didn't really realize how burnt out I was until now. When I'm kind of out of the burnout, I'm thinking like, there are so many things that I guess it's hard to say, but like, I just feel like I can reflect better on the experience of working at Radical now that it's not my day to day. And I can have more conversations about it, and I can be more honest, and it doesn't hurt as much when I talk about the different failures that we have had, or things that I think I personally failed at. I'm much more kind to myself about in retrospect. So I've been enjoying that.
I think like it's kind of a cliche at this point. Like, yeah, you learn the most from your failures. Yeah, but it doesn't like hurt any less. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah. And I see it's like, it's really humbling to fail. And it's really humbling to not know what you're doing or what to do next, right? Like, let me be honest. Like, I was doubling my apartment as my workspace. I'd browse around my apartment all the time. I was hosting meetings out of there. I was hosting events out of there too. And then I couldn't afford to live there anymore. And I was living pretty meagerly, as of course not like horribly, but like I wasn't spending well beyond my means by any, by any regard.
Like you were like heads down, like building, like
yeah. I was like, this is my office in my apartment and like my bra studio, and I'm doing all my photo shoots here, and like everything was happening in this one space. And then I was like, okay, I can't even afford my office bedroom, so I'm moving. And like I moved back home with my parents. I packed all my stuff up, and like slowly had to rebuild my savings, like figure out my next steps, and also like learn to let go of working on Radical 24/7 and learn to like take a break, which I just didn't make sense to me. And I think I'm saying this not now as if like everything has been concluded and all of a sudden like I'm clear and at peace, but yeah, I have days when I'm not fully at peace with it. I've come to terms with that fact, and I've come to terms with like, this is what reconciling looks like. I'm okay with that.
And it's great that you like, even though obviously it's a work in progress, like are able to like still be kind to yourself, even like through this, because like, as we've mentioned, like this was obviously no easy feat. Starting a company in general is no easy feat. Also, starting companies, like you learn like obviously a ton through that experience. What do you think like one of the biggest lessons that you learned like through the process of being at Radical was?
You're the boss. That's the biggest lesson I learned is like, you're the boss. People will have strong opinions or weak opinions or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're the boss. You make the decisions, you own it. And also like, don't focus too much on the consequences of things, because the consequences of things are the precursor to the next thing. So like, okay, this didn't happen how you wanted it to, fine, but it's still how it happened. So what's next? Like, that's like how you have to think. And also, the last thing I would say is a lot of the things that you're ashamed about and a lot of things that you're experiencing, other people that you think are successful have or are currently experiencing them too. That's what I've learned. And so don't, take the time to feel that shame. It's okay. But like, at some point, know that there's something better waiting for you. And so like, do what you need to recuperate and like move forward.
Like, you're not in it alone, and you're not usually experiencing like your problems in isolation. Like, a lot of people that are either founders or working in similar industries like go through the same things. What did your community actually look like? Like, who was there to support you? Who did you like see as a mentor? Like, what did community and support really look like during your Radical era?
Yeah, I had a lot of different sources of support. So I was in a founder community and had a lot of other founders who could directly relate to my experiences. And there were some people, like, to shout out Haley Pavoni of Passion Footwear, just such like a wonderful person that I've talked to so many times. There's so many others in that group that I still talk to and still think of regularly, who really just like transformed my life beyond even founderhood. But I think I realized that different members of my community supported me in different ways. One group that was unlikely that I had found support in was middle schoolers. I started becoming a Girls on the Run, a middle school running coach, and I would like hang out with middle schoolers twice. I mean, not hang out, coach them
Right.
twice a week, or like once to twice a week, and just like run laps with them and hear about their lives and hear about what's consuming their worlds. And that community, and just like feeling appreciated and needed, and also being able to like talk them through body dysmorphia things that I dealt with when I was their age. That was like a big source of support for me, and still is. I'm still a coach with them today. But yeah, it's just like, I think the best thing about being community oriented or being community led is you start to realize just how big of a net community truly is, and how much people do want to be there for you and for each other. And just like reflecting on that constantly and always being given a reason to. So I don't know, that's not truly probably like the most traditional answer, but yeah, just every member of the community together, I felt so supported.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool to see, just like, it doesn't look like, I don't know if I'd know any other founder that's like, yeah, actually middle schoolers, like I get support through, but like that also like is so special. Cause like when you think about like what, like the thoughts were on like starting Radical, like it all connects, like it all does connect for you, like in the end.
Yeah, it does.
How has your perspective on success evolved since, everything that happened with Radical?
I guess I thought success was a lot more tangible or measurable, I would say, when I first started Radical. And a lot of that, like a lot of founders are really used to the conversation with investors where they're saying like, once you hit X number, or, this is cool, but get XYZ metric or whatever it may be. And there's always something to strive towards. So I think for a long time, like I thought, okay, success is when I hit this point. But I think I care less about it than I did when I first started. And I think I care a lot more about like the intangible wealth that I feel, and like being surrounded by such a huge community, by knowing that I put my all towards building this technology, by feeling the pride that like is that I deserve to feel for the accomplishments that we had, right? Like getting a patent for your own technology you invented when you were 21 is success, yes, but the true success is feeling pride for that and like truly honoring yourself for that accomplishment. So a little bit of like a turnaround answer, but or like a labored answer, but that's really how I see success now. Is who cares about any of the accolades unless you truly honor yourself for what you've done and you truly honor your community for how they've helped you.
That's really great, actually, because like, yeah, if you like keep like going up the ladder and like keep like trying to like grab like whatever metric it is, like you gotta like stop and smell the roses, you know? And like as long as like, you know, it's great to hear that like you've been able to like do that throughout the process.
Yeah. That being said, like I'm very envious of people who've won other awards. Like I have a lot of friends who are Forbes 30 under 30, and I'm like, that is so cool. One day I hope that I get to get that accomplishment too. I'm not there yet.
You're on the way.
But like,
You're on the way.
I'm like, that is cool. Like I see someone get a Grammy, I'm like, that is cool, you know?
Right.
But yeah, it's just there's so much more to an award than that, or to a milestone or whatever it may be, than just hitting it.
For sure. So we talked a little bit about how nowadays you're also working at an edtech startup again, but outside of that, like you mentioned, you're also like trying a bunch of new things. I've seen like a bunch on your Instagram. What are you excited about right now?
You know what I'm excited about? I'm excited about flag football. Yeah, I don't play. I don't play. But I went to a talk by Jess Smith, who's the president of the Valkyries, the Golden State women's basketball team. And that introduced me to an organization called Women's Coaching Alliance. And from there, I turned into a leader mentor for 2 high school girl coaches for boys flag football. So that makes sense. So there's a 5th and 6th grade flag football team. 2 high school girls are the coaches of it. And I'm one of their mentors. And being a mentor for this team, where my job is to like not talk during the games, not interfere, and to observe, has been such an interesting lesson for me. And I've loved it. And I also just I do love flag football. Like I'm like, they're really good and they know drills and things that like I didn't do growing. Like we didn't have flag football. So
Right.
this is really, they call it Friday Night Lights, and I'm obsessed with it. Like I really, so yeah, that I started taking community college classes. So like twice a week I go in and I take ballet, which I did as a kid, and now I'm like very humbled by. And then I'm learning how to code. So I like take a computer science class once a week.
I have a friend that also just like started like community college classes just for like fun. Like she did like several semesters of like ceramics, you know?
Yes.
Or, yeah,
go to community college. I'm not kidding. I'm the biggest advocate for it because I started taking community college classes when I was in high school. A high school teacher had signed us up for a class, and ever since then, I've been enrolled in community college. I've taken classes throughout my time at Berkeley. I took community college classes. It saved me so much money. I got to explore so many other areas. And now as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is a great use of my free will. It's cheap. Not super cheap, but it's cheaper than other schooling options. It's accessible. They are all about access. There's so many opportunities beyond just the classes themselves, and it's flexible. Like everyone there is there for different reasons. And I just love the experience so much. I cannot speak more highly of it.
Yeah. And like in a previous episode, like I talked to one of the guests about like we delved into, is a 4-year degree a trap? But like I do think like community college and like going like to actually learn about learning, like whatever is actually interesting to you, like I feel like that's so valuable. Whether it's like in a community college or like a rec center class or like whatever, just like I think like making space to like, you know, just develop skills that aren't like specifically work related. Like they're just things you care about. Like, I think that's awesome.
Yes. And that's all and actually the educational startup I work at now is called Curioso. It's all about sparking kids' curiosity, right? So like every day I'm learning about a new like woman for Women's History Month, or I'm learning about like the gray wolf and why they're extinct or why they were almost extinct, and like why are there different kinds of curries all around the world, and just like exploring different questions. I think that's the best thing about being an adult and having free will to some extent. And also like being at my age where I don't have kids yet. I'm not married. I'm not tied down in a lot of ways that I think other people might be experiencing. This is like the time to exercise free will and like try things and learn things. And like, I keep saying this, but hobbies don't need to be done to completion. Like that's why they're hobbies. So just try it. Like if you don't finish it, so what? Like just start it. Who cares? Like there's literally no consequence in trying something. So like that's sort of the mentality I've been going with, is like this is unsustainable. Yes. But I never said it was meant to be sustainable. I'm just
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah. And like, if it sparks a little bit of joy along the way, like, yeah, we love that.
Sweet treat for your brain. Like this.
Just a little treat.
Yeah. I mean, I've been giving myself a little bit of like reprieve from, I've worked really hard for the past couple of years, and I just feel like I deserve to enjoy myself a little bit. And then we'll see. We'll see when it comes back to time to putting my head down.
No, for sure. So what is next for Radical? And like, obviously, like, the things are still up in the air, and like, it's definitely like fine that we're still figuring some of it out. But like,
Yeah.
what's exciting you with like your company in this like new reflective state, like, and also like finding balance again with it?
Yeah. I cannot tell you exactly what is new with Radical. All I can say is that right now there are like 4 or 5 directions we can take Radical next that all sound equally appealing. But what I will say is that one thing I really want to happen is more education, and in general for the bra industry, what I want to happen is more education around how bras work and bra shopping and boobs. I want there to be more accessibility to that. And then also what we will push for long term is more affordability in custom bras. How long it will take us to make that happen, I don't know, but it is something I'm very, very dedicated towards. And I know I'll see in my lifetime, hopefully well before that, sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. And also just more community events, most definitely.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah,
wherever you push Radical, like, I'm excited to just see like where it goes. And I know whatever it is, like, one thing that I have just like always admired is you like whole ass things. There's no half-assing like ever, and like, I think like, yeah, the future of Radical, no matter like which direction, like, is very bright. So I'm excited to see that. I actually have just one last question for you. And thinking through just like, you're an ambitious person in general. And like, even like when it wasn't your own company, like, I could tell that you like really pushed yourself, and you spoke a little bit about like burnout, like during your founder era. What does your relationship with work look like right now? And like, what have you learned like through your founder experience that'll like help guide you moving forward?
I'm more aware of when burnout starts. I'm more aware of the signs, and I'm better at recovering from burnout. But I'll differentiate it as like a little bit of exhaustion and like deep burnout. And I'm better at saying like, oh, I'm a little bit exhausted and I need equal amounts of rest to match the amount of work I just did, and not getting to the point of deep burnout and like health failure, which is where I was at previously. I think I also have the luxury of like, I love the work I do during the daytime, but also at the end of the day, it's a job. Like, it is a job. Okay, close your laptop sometimes. It's for the better of everyone. Like, just close your laptop sometimes. I've been kinder to myself about that. I've been easier on myself about that. And also, like, I've been better at patting myself on the back. What I do now that I didn't do at Radical was take the time to itemize what I'd worked on that week and like reflect on that. Like, okay, you didn't think you did a lot, but actually you did a lot, and you just kept doing more because you didn't think you did a lot. Like, that was a fallacy that I kept on falling into, I think, reflecting back probably at Radical as well. And now when I look at that list, I say, you know what, Ashley, like, you did a good job this week. Like, you did way more than you thought you were going to do, and you deserve a break. So I don't know, like, the burnout is a hard thing. And I think a lot of people will end up in a burnout spot. And it's also not an unrecoverable thing too. Like, you know how to rest, you know how to take breaks, you know how to give yourself grace. Try it.
To come all the way full circle, give yourself grace, give yourself the flowers, like, just remind yourself that you're awesome and like you've done all the things. That's just really important advice for anyone, like regardless of where you're at in your journey to here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like eating disorder 101. It's like, be kind to yourself, like, love who you see in front of you, and take a moment to do. Like, sometimes I just stare in the mirror and I like smile at myself. I'm like, wow, look how brilliant you are. You just need to have a minute like that. Like, sometimes that's all you need. And I wish like that much love upon everyone. And I wish that everyone has that for themselves, truly. And so I mean, whether you're a middle school girl that I get to coach for running, or, a parent that's watching their kid play flag football, or a leader for the junior, NBA that I got to work with photography, whatever it is, wherever you're at your journey, like, just like honor, you, and take a second for that. And there's always time for that. So,
Ashley, this has been such a joy. Thank you so much for joining us.
it was so fun. I love talking to you.
Love
This
talking
is
to
so
you too.
much fun for me.
We'll have to have you back sometime.
Thank you to our guest, Ashley Wen, for being a part of this week's episode. And thank you for listening to I Don't Know About You. I Don't Know About You is written, edited, and produced by me, Kyle Cusimore, music by Chris Samperusi. You can get new episodes each Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. You can follow us for updates on Instagram, TikTok, and I Don't Know About You.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.